For like ever.
Nobody ever touches it.
All right. It is now 4 o'clock. We're going to call this special call meeting to order. We're going to start with a moment of silent reflection for the first responders and members of the armed forces, followed by an invocation by Pastor Jeremy Rebman of the United Methodist Church, Vero Beach, or Vero Church? Huh? Oh, never mind, I'm sorry. By invocation by Commissioner Lohr, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Ehrman. So if everybody would please stand.
Please pray with me. Our Heavenly Father, we are grateful for this day. We're grateful for this county. We're grateful for this state, and we're grateful for this wonderful country. Father, as we make decisions on the county's behalf today, we know that you can offer us the best guidance and loyalty to our consumers and our residents. We all say this in your Son's name. Amen.
Please join me in honoring the greatest nation in the world, the United States.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? If not, Commissioner Flesher, do you want to make your standing motion of approving the agenda as presented?
Madam Chair, motion to approve the agenda as stated.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And with that, we will move into the meat of our meeting. The second special call meeting on the solid waste and recyclables collection services. Machu, take it away.
All right. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Good afternoon to the public. My name is Himanshu Mehta. I'm the Managing Director of the Solid Waste Disposal District, and I'm excited to be here. I think I'm proud of the process that we've taken, and I'm proud of some historic decisions today. So, as you mentioned, we are here to talk about the solid waste and recyclables collection services franchise. It is set to expire on September 30, 2025. I'm proud of the fact that we've started this process early enough, thorough enough, and excited to kind of move to the next level. So today's purpose, it is decision time today. And it moves us one step closer to making sure that we have a smooth transition of services for our residents. We're going to present service options that are being considered for garbage, recycling, yard waste, and bulk collection. Recycling is the service that impacts all residents of Indian River County. The other services, the garbage, yard waste, and bulk collection services that we're going to talk about today only impact unincorporated Indian River County residents. We're here to obtain public input, and we're here to get the switchboard to guide us on some decisions about the services that are to begin in our community starting October 1, 2025. So, I love garbage. I've been, I think this week celebrated 20 years of being with Indian River County, and 17 of those have been with the Solid Waste Disposal District. And so, as I've traveled, one of the things that comes to my attention is recycling containers, garbage containers. And I had an opportunity earlier this year to go back to India. And so I'm gonna take you on a little world tour real quick. So I had my suede jacket at the Taj Mahal, as you see on the top left corner there, proudly representing Indian River County. Just some pictures there, some containers, of what's utilized for collection and recycling. What I saw is some manual efforts, the bottom left picture on your screen, and basically the gentleman was sweeping it up and then putting it into those containers. And I got a little bit of a video. This is my hometown. This is outside my door. They have a 7-day-a-week service. It's part of their taxes or whatnot. There is no separate garbage bill, but this is how it's done in my hometown. So I just wanted to show you a glimpse of how 7 days a week, this is what happens right outside my door in the hometown of Nadia, India. Then I want to take you to Rome, thanks to Jim Harpering, town manager of Town of Indian River Shores. He took a trip there earlier this year. And, I think he's caught the solid waste bug, right? Wherever you go, you try to, the garbage just comes to your attention. So just like, unfortunately, or different than India or my hometown, here they have an automated vehicle here. I'm going to share with you. So that's how it's done in Rome. And so then it brings us back here, back to Indian River County to talk about what we're doing today. So again, I'm proud of the process. We started this with board direction back in July of 2023. Happy to report that, through the whole process, we had right from the beginning various interested parties and wanting to basically work for Indian River County. And we received 5 responses on February 21st, 2024. As you recall, we passed out over 87,000 postcards. We held a meeting last month in the chambers here. It was a special call meeting on March 20th. We didn't make any decisions at the time, but we went over all the different options that are going to be again in front of you today. And here we are today for the second special call meeting to select the option. Ultimately, what staff is looking for at the end of this meeting is basically for the board to select an option, give us authorization to negotiate with the top 2 ranked firms, and then we're looking at a final award in May or June of this year, which would allow the hauler 15 to 16 months to obtain their carts, trucks, staffing, et cetera, to be ready to make sure that ultimately our residents have continuous service. So one of the first decisions here that I kind of put in front of you is, as I mentioned through this RFP process, we had a selection committee. The RFP was issued, and one of the jobs, primary job of the selection committee members, there was 5 of us, the utilities director, myself, Ronnie Jones, the assistant managing director. We had Kristen, our budget director, and we had Heather Christmas from the town of Indian River Shores. And Elise stepped in as well to assist. And our job was to review the proposals and evaluate the performance of the proposals. When we came to the first meeting of the committee, basically all of us had a ranking, an initial ranking of the firms. And then what we were presented with was the price proposal. There was a 45 points for the price, if you will. And so there was an initial ranking done that combined the ranking of the committee members and the financial pricing. After that process, the selection committee basically issued a set of questions through the purchasing department. We held a second meeting, and at that time, based on the additional information that we had received, we came to this final ranking of the firms. And as you can see here, we have FCC Environmental Services out of West Palm Beach, ranked 1 on all 4 service options. Waste Management, Vero Beach, Florida, ranked 2nd. Coastal Waste and Recycling out of Boca Raton, ranked 3rd for the first 3 options, and Republic Services ranked 3rd for option number 4. And then, as it shows again, between Waste Pro and Republic, and Coastal on option 4, ranking 4 and 5. Back over. Yeah, let me go back one slide. Okay. So I know this is early in the presentation, transportation. Does the board have any questions, I guess, on the RFP process and the selection committee rankings? We felt at this stage, and we can wait till later, but we do want the board to accept the ranking of the committee in terms of the process that we went through to follow the RFP process. Is that something the board would like to hold off on, or would like to?
Comments, questions, and concerns? I think Camacho is looking for input on the RFP process and the proposed ranking.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Yes, Camacho, and I appreciate the hard work the team's done. And I know today is the decision day of picking an option. And then reading the follow-up, and you mentioned it earlier about the meeting with the top two. Did the RFP have anything, does it say that we're allowed to do that? In other words, it looks clear that FCC, according to these documents, is by far the cheapest, or lowest, I should say. So the question is, and maybe our attorney would know, what's the process of, if we've got 5 companies that's already bid, that they've already done their homework, and now we are asking the 2 teams to sharpen their pencils, is that because that would depend on the option that we choose today?
It would help narrow down the focus of that negotiation. We have preliminary pricing at this point. We've been through the process, and even before any of the initial pricing was received, we did issue various addendums. I think we answered over 150 questions. I think it was more than that. Responded to all their questions, provided additional information. And one of the things that we clarified is the timeline. And the timeline indicated that it was going to be a public hearing process like we're going through now. There would be a sort of a, obviously the ranking would be presented to the board, and we would basically go through an approval of the ranking and then negotiation with the top firms, and then come back at a later time with an award. The idea being to get them to sharpen the pencil, to get the best price for our residents.
So did the vendors know throughout the RFP that once they submitted everything, then the board decides the option, then they get to reformulate their numbers? I'm
going to ask Bethany or Jennifer to maybe just reconfirm that.
It just seems a little unusual to me that, everybody's done a lot of research, the vendors have, and now we are picking the option, and then the team would negotiate with the 2, which to me seems a little unusual. Now that everybody knows each other's numbers, why wouldn't you renegotiate with all 5?
Fair question. Bethany?
And I think that could be a decision that the board can make. The best and final offer is a common tool utilized, just again, as Hamachi said, to get the best price for the county, for your citizens. And it is a common tool. It was, as he mentioned in, I think it was addendum 9, was when the updated procurement schedule was issued, and it was clearly stated within there. There was not like a withholding of information, and I'm sure Jennifer could probably speak to your procurement process as well.
Okay, so it was stated in the RFP?
In addendum 9, yes, that there would be a negotiations. It was the full process.
And was that, did it also include, who picked 2? Who picked the top 2?
That is a staff recommendation. And as you'll see later on, we do indicate that if the board, and it mentions in the agenda item, that if the board, if we fail to reach a decision with the top 2 and to allow us to continue negotiating with the other firms. That's our recommendation. We're certainly open to board suggestion or input on that. Like you said, it wasn't just the price. The price was 45 points of the process. Right. we evaluated the firms, we checked the references, we looked at how many trucks they were gonna have, how many people they were gonna have, what were they gonna do to increase recycling, participation in our county. What was their sort of we identified some challenges with substandard roads, dirt roads, narrow roads, what kind of vehicles were they gonna bring in? We asked about the fuel that they were gonna use for their trucks, about the local call center, how many people they were gonna have in the local call center. So there was a thorough vetted process by the selection committee, independent review of all of their qualifications and all the other requirements aside from price. And so that's kind of where I think we wanted the best of the best, if you will, for Indian River County and our community. And that was the process that we did. Price was a factor. Ultimately, we asked more questions. I was one of the selection committee members that changed my ranking at the second meeting based on additional information. And so, and that was up to other selection committee members as well, and that's how we achieved this final ranking that you see in front of you. So I do feel that all the firms were present at both meetings to know the process. It was a public meeting. They were invited. I think all of them were there. Jennifer can confirm, but there's a recording of those meetings that are public as well.
Right. It seems to me that, if I'm the vendor that's number one, and I did my due diligence, and I'm going to get in a relationship with the county for 10 years, it seems a little odd to me that, and obviously this is one of the first large contracts that I've dealt with as a county commissioner, that what message are we sending to them that, you came in lowest, presumably most responsible, but we're going to ask you to sharpen your pencil some more. I don't know how the other commissioners feel, but, and I don't know that, Mr. Administrator, have you seen or heard of a process like this?
In short answer, no. I was made familiar of it when they had discussed it in November. We had a phone call, myself, the attorney's office, and I know we asked specifically to Kessler, where else this has been done. It was unfamiliar to me, but they provided some examples of some other cities or counties that have done it. What I would like to ask, and I hate to put staff on the spot here, because last night, based on I thoroughly went through the RFP, then I did get in touch with Himanshu this morning. I've just been in interviews all day, is for staff to review the specific language in Addendum 9, because I just looked at it and I don't see where it says that. I want to, in terms of transparency here, because I don't see it. I see the change in the schedule, but it doesn't say highest and best offer or another firm.
Right.
As maybe Jennifer can, I know it's a 66-page document, and I'm like scrolling through trying to find it, and I don't see it.
Yes, Commissioner Fletcher.
I just want to answer.
Best and final offer.
Sure, floor. I've never seen it.
Sorry,
I'll go back and look for it. I'll be 18 years.
schedule.
I've never seen this system.
Hi, Jennifer. Maybe
Hello.
you can shed some light on this.
Jennifer Hyde, I'm the county purchasing manager. So Indian River County itself, I don't know in my experience here, has ever done a best and final offer. It is not unheard of. It's definitely a very common practice, both among our counterparts in the state and nationally. And in some instances, especially this type of contract, it is a recommended best practice because it does enable us to negotiate concurrently with both firms and ultimately arrive at the best product or service for our entity. Mr. Tikanich, in terms of the schedule, if you look at the schedule where it says the timeline, one of the entries is deadline for best and final offers, if requested, I believe, is what it says. Is that one, addendum 9?
Well, okay, so what I'm hearing from you, Jennifer, is while Indian River County has never done this before, other places around the state have been doing this for different types of RFPs, and it is considered a best practice?
Yes.
Within your expertise
Yes.
area, purchasing, I suppose.
Yes.
Okay. And if you have the language, you can go over it, but this is our third meeting, right? It's our second special call meeting. We had a discussion at commission to talk about the timeline. And I believe in all of those discussions, I mean, I have the other PowerPoints, I can go upstairs and get them, but there was a slide in there that indicated that this was the process we were gonna go through. So whether it's included in the RFP or not, I understand the concern, but whether it's included in the RFP or not, it's not as if everybody that's been part of this conversation and even has come here or watched it, all of the people that have submitted bids were unaware that this was gonna be the process. And I think at the end of the day, it's set up, what you said earlier, Jennifer, is it's set up so you can get a better price for your residents, and that's what we're trying to do across the board. Now, if you guys wanna talk about opening it up to more than two, if you feel that it's unfair just to limit it to the top two, I think that we can have that discussion, but we're like 3 meetings into having committed to this process.
Well, at the last workshop that we had this discussion, Hamachu intimated this process.
That's correct.
He did, and I clearly remember you discussing it. My concern, I don't know if it's the same as Sheriff's, but, and for Counselor, if the bid is what it is, and you used other criteria for the other 55%, should now at your negotiations, you spiral downward, because you're good negotiators, thank you, does that open us up for the ability of a bid challenge?
Thank you, Commissioner Fleischer and Commissioner Lohr. I share your surprise as far as this method of negotiation. We specifically, when this issue came up, John and I both were surprised by it. We asked the consultant, have you done this in other areas? He said yes. Basically, we do this all the time. This is something that the haulers expect and are used to. They have not been challenged in any other Florida areas where they have gone through this process.
I know if I was one of the other bidders and saw the end result, I'd be there.
And that was one of the questions that I posed to the consultant. If we choose the top two and ask them for their best and final price, what would number 3 say? Would that open things up? And they say, no, we have not run into that problem before.
Well, the committee decided the top two, and when I met with Himatsu and Sean, I think last week when we went over this very similar or exact, and I asked that question then about, why would we pick the top two? That just seems unusual to me. And, if if the consultant is telling us that, yes, it happens statewide, but there's always that one that doesn't happen.
True. I think what you're used to seeing in requests for proposals is engineering, survey, things like that, where we look at their qualifications and we accept the various different types of, for example, survey companies. One survey company might do very well at surveying just land out west in the county, large acreages. Other surveying companies might specialize in beach renourishment type surveys. Those are the type of things that you've been seeing coming before you with our beach renourishment projects, where we have accepted 5 different professionals to participate.
Right, however, in that example, county and the county staff is familiar with those particular survey companies.
Correct.
So, and we understand that, out west versus the beach, we get that. I think this is a different animal here. I mean, it's a 10-year commitment, this relationship that we're gonna have with one of these five, for 10 years. And I think this is a different animal.
Can you provide us with examples of other areas, cities, or counties where they have gone through this process?
Yes, Ms. Chairwoman. We recently, you all are aware of Sarasota County. That was a negotiation process as well there. It is just, it's kind of as Jennifer said, and it's just a common tool that some jurisdictions utilize to get that best and final price. And there's no like set structure about the top ranked. Oftentimes it's two entering into negotiations because with an RFP process, it's not about just price, as Himanshu noted. It's also about their qualifications. And so you're wanting to not invite everyone back to the table. You've already tried to kind of narrow down to the top two, the top three, whatever the jurisdiction seeks to utilize there, and then obtain that best and final price. It's really just a tool to help reduce the pricing for, the citizens.
All right, do you have any comments on this end, commissioners?
Yes and no. I hear loud and clear what Commissioner Lohr is saying about that. I thought it was kind of strange too, but I do remember a discussion in the past of you saying that you were going to come back, with after kind of with the final two and try to negotiate further on certain things if there was. I'm not getting that warm, fuzzy feeling quite yet. I feel a little better since we've had a discussion about it and hearing what the ladies have to say. Because all these companies are qualified. It's just you went through the process of asking certain questions, such as, like you said, how many employees they have, how many trucks they have, how are they going to be able to do this or do that. And I think we would do the same with the survey company that would make sure they have the right qualifications and ask that we probably get used to using certain people that grade roads and certain people that do things that we're familiar with, so we know they're qualified. Obviously, I think all five of these are qualified. I don't know yet, Madam Chairman, as to what I'd like to hear. Maybe some more discussion, more something from the county attorney or the administrator.
Well, yes, Commissioner Moss?
Yeah, unless 4 and 5 would drop out, and this is for you to say, having to do with matters other than price, I think they would be eliminated for some of these other variables which you evaluated. Unless they're dropping out regardless, then yeah, I think it does seem that we will get the best outcome by considering the entire horse race, if you will. I mean, that's what it is, in effect. Unless some are, like, as I said earlier, some are going to be disqualified because of other variables.
I think that we're talking about, well, now we're talking about three different things. So first, Himanshu is our staff, I'm sorry, not just Himanshu, is asking if we agree with the rankings in the top, the final selection review committee rankings. That is the first question. Commissioner Lohr is concerned about the process. And as part of Commissioner Lohr's concern about the process, he has raised not only just the process, but if we do follow the process as it has been laid out, limiting it to just the top two. So that's three different decisions at this point. At the end of the day, my interest is in getting a good price for our residents on yard waste, or not yard waste, on garbage waste and yard waste, on the whole package. I haven't finished my afternoon coffee. But So if this is a process that's going to get us a better price than what's presented, then I don't really, I guess I'm missing where the concern is, other than the concern for the people that have submitted bids that have been well aware that this was the process that we were going to go down. Because right now, it seems like the conversation is really just helping out the people that have submitted the bids. And no offense to anybody in the room that is not where my interest lies. My interest lies in helping the residents get the best price. So I think that we are getting wrapped up, I mean, we're going down a rabbit hole of most of just craziness.
So can I just real quickly, I've just looked at the Florida statutes real quick, and there actually is a provision in there about invitation to negotiate, and it goes in further, the agency shall evaluate replies against evaluation criteria. The agency may select one or more vendors within the competitive range with which to commence negotiation. After negotiations are conducted, the agency shall award the contract to the responsible and responsive vendor that the agency determines which will provide the best value to the state. I apologize, last night when I looked at the RFP, then in between meetings looked at addendum 9, that I just looked it up on the statute, so kind of does contemplate that, actually.
And that's what we were following.
It does, and there's two different things that we have to keep in mind here. There's two separate types of proposals that we could have used. We could have used the invitation to negotiate, where we would extend a list of demands to all of the companies and invite them to negotiate with us, knowing that we were going to pit one against the other. Here we went for the proposals because we wanted to see how many trucks there were, what type of equipment they were going to use, how they were going to be able to do things, instead of letting out just kind of a flat contract for asphalt or concrete or something like that in an invitation to bid. Here we went with the proposals to have, you know, a much more developed response from the bidders rather than just a price. And yes, I have confidence in Jennifer and Bethany in their response that this is a best practice in dealing with a response to a request for proposals.
And Commissioners, if I may add, this is decision one of 4 tonight. So decision 4 is going to be actually asking you about the top 2, and then approval to even go to 3, 4, and 5. So this decision in front of you right now was to say that we had a selection committee. This is accepting the ranking of the 5 proposals and how, based on the selection committee review of the 5 proposals, how they ranked by the various 4 options that are in front of us today. And so decision number 4 is going to come in where we're going to ask about going to negotiate. So right now, what I wanted to do is pause and stop and say, you requested staff to put an RFP together. We followed the procurement process. I think there was a great engagement from all the vendors. They asked great questions. We provided responses to them. And again, in that process, we did identify that there was a schedule in there that talked about best and final offers. There was a mention in there about negotiations. They had opportunity to ask additional questions. We didn't get any questions back about that. Once the timeline was done, that timeline was provided with the mentioning of best and final offers before they submitted their price. They could have asked more questions. We would have been glad. I mean, I think, was it 170 some questions that we answered. So, I think there was ample opportunity for discussion, and the vendors were aware of the process we were going to follow. So at this time, I'm asking the board to accept the final rankings as prepared by the selection committee. When the selection committee, the second meeting, and the final ranking was done, basically the job of the selection committee was over. They then handed it over to me as a solid waste managing director to then basically put all of this together with ultimate recommendation to the board. And those are my recommendations. Will come to you in decision 2 and 3. and ultimately N4. But right now, I'm confident of the process that we followed. I'm confident and proud of the selection committee members and the job they did in assisting us in this process. I think it was a fair, transparent process. And so at this time, I am asking the board to just approve the final ranking of the selection committee.
Does anybody have any questions on the final ranking of the selection committee? Yes, Commissioner Ehrman.
So this was, again, not to be redundant, but this was based on 150 questions, everything from, need more trucks, more employees, or less trucks, less employees,
Exactly. And
rain or shine, all that sort of stuff.
And not only just Q&As, we provided a sample agreement. And anytime we made modifications to our RFP, or we clarified something in one of the answers, we provided a final sample agreement with red lines to show that, a vendor clarified something, I think toward the end, about multifamily. And it was a great question. And it came sort of toward the end. And it caused us to actually modify the pricing form to make sure we captured that properly, and they had a fair opportunity to propose on multifamily. And so we updated the not only the price proposal form, but we also updated the sample agreement so they could see exactly what the sample agreement's going to be that they're going to sign with the Board of County Commissioners. And so there isn't, we didn't want to leave any ambiguity. We even asked, do you have any exceptions to the agreement? Because we didn't want to get further down in forming a relationship with one of the vendors and then find out that they don't like something that's in our sample agreement. So again, I feel proud of the process and not only answering all their questions, but also updating the sample agreement to make sure that it captures exactly the contract that they're going to enter with us for 5 to 10 years.
I mean, this was based on more than just price, period.
That's correct.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the selection committee final ranking.
I'll second that. All right. On this decision solely, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the commissioners? Anybody from the public that wants to speak on the ranking? Just the ranking. Okay, seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. All right,
Thank you, Commissioners.
one decision down,
All right.
700 to go.
Three more. So one of the things that, as staff and whatnot, we did when we evaluated it, so what we're looking at, and this ties into a later decision, is wanted to focus on the top two firms, right now, the top two ranked firms that you had just previously approved. And we wanted to look at the total annual price of residential, commercial, and what we call supplemental services. Predominantly, that includes the recycling at government buildings and government facilities in our parks. So here's sort of an overall annual comparison of the four options. And if they go over the options in a broad sense, option one is the current service that we have right now, which is once a week garbage, once a week recycling, once a week yard waste services. The only enhancement that we included in this RFP was a change to bulk. Current provider has the ability for subscription customers to call for a bulk pickup. They have 4 days to go pick up an old couch or an old refrigerator. One of the enhancements in this RFP is we have a routed bulk service. So there will be a bulk truck routed throughout our community so that basically my goal was to enhance the sort of the curb appeal of our community. What was happening with the 4-day rule was I could put my couch out today, they have 4 days to pick it up, my neighbor calls in a few days later and has something else that they put out, and now that has to sit out there for 4 more days. This will basically set a bulk day per week for our residents. They'll know what day to put something out, and it will a truck will be routed through the community to clean up whatever items are out there. So that's option one, subscription, again, enhancement with bulk service. As you see here, there's a big range between FCC and Waste Management, 23.8 versus 33. Option 2 is universal services, where we put our unincorporated Indian River County residents on the assessment roll, just like we do for universal recycling. And we were able to see a closer gap between the top two firms, 22.2 versus 24.8 on an annual basis. Option 3 and 4 are similar in terms of the comparison of subscription and universal. The only difference being is the hauler would provide a cart for yard waste service. And I'll show you some more details a little bit about that in a second. Again, ultimately, I felt that with looking at carted yard waste service, I thought that was going to wind up being the lowest price. I thought that was going to wind up being the option 3 and 4 were going to be lower than option 1 and 2, in my opinion, because what we were doing with carted yard waste is we were eliminating having folks, on the back of the truck and manually picking up yard waste in our community. The heat exhaustion, if you will, the dangers of, we've seen, staff has gone out and seen videos. The first thing that the employee does when they gets off the back of the truck, they kick the yard waste to make sure there's no snake or rodents in that yard waste pile, right? Just to be safe as a safety measure. But again, they're manually picking up a lot of the things and putting it in the truck. So I expected, again, option 3 and 4 with carted yard waste, because of reducing their liability, increasing the efficiency, those to be a little the lowest prices. But again, market comparison between the two, they're a little higher than option 1 and 2. I mentioned universal recycling in Indian River County. This is on the non-ad valorem assessment to all improved residential properties. So this includes all residents, about 70,000, over 70,000 residents. And in 2015, when we went to carted recycling program, multiple haulers were recommending that we go to a carted recycling program. It did a tremendous job in increasing recycling participation. Back prior to 2015, we had 18-gallon bins, and not everybody even had the bins. So by deploying this recycling program, universal recycling, we saw an uptick in recycling participation. I can tell you over the 9, 10 years, and I've shared this with you, the audits that my staff performs out there, we do find an abuse on some of the recycling carts. There are folks that are using the recycling carts for garbage service. And if we had a turn back clock, we should have maybe waited on universal recycling. It really should have been that we should have matched subscription service with subscription recycling. That if you subscribe for garbage, you get a recycling cart. Reason being is then that would have ensured that the folks that are properly recycling, they want to use the recycling cart for recycling purposes. The other methodology would have been to reverse it. Not that I would have recommended it, but to almost require universal garbage service and subscription recycling. Is to make sure they have an opportunity to get rid of their garbage, and if they really want to recycle, then they can subscribe for that service. Again, it's probably not a practice that's done out there. When we look at the pricing from the top two firms, the current single-family rate that we have for universal recycling is $2.94 a month. There's a 167% increase in the price. Now, this is on the assessment that we're looking at for the top-ranked firm, $7.84 a month. Waste Management has an 87% increase to the current price that we're paying them right now, going up to $5.51. Again, these are initially proposed rates. That's why we're talking about this, sharpening of the pencil. We feel that we could get them to compete and reduce that price to hopefully match what all of our 70,000 residents are currently paying. Certainly, we recognize that 10 years has gone by. Fuel rates have changed. Labor rates have changed, and we do recognize that there is an increase due, but we feel that we can get better pricing on this than what we're seeing now. I want to just, before 2 more slides, and then we're going to open it up to board discussion and public input. This is again, from my point of view, I wanted to just highlight some differences, if you will, with the current program where customers provide their own yard waste cans for yard waste service. Again, a lot of people are using the old 18-gallon bins. They're using the garbage cart for yard waste sometimes because it's on a different day. And what I see is residents are utilizing some type of container to put their yard waste in. And that's happening in our community. And here's a short video of staff following a truck and how it's done currently. I had an opportunity to go up to West Melbourne. It's more of a developed community. Went there one early morning because they do have carted yard waste service. They have over about 10,000 residents that went to that. They did that in October of 2023. And they deployed the 10,000 carts, and I think about only like 20 residents return their carts. They're very happy with the service. So here's just a quick clip of how that works. Got a very clean and efficient process in picking that up. I'm not a reporter, but I happened to catch a resident there right where this truck was picking up. And good morning, sir.
Good morning. Jim Liesenfeld, 820 Hunters Creek.
All right. What do you think about this carted yard waste program?
Well, I like the carts. The only drawback I see is, if you have a lot of stuff, it might take a couple weeks to put everything in the cart. I haven't called to pick up the extras, but it makes the neighborhood a lot cleaner, though.
Does it?
Yes,
Okay.
we don't see as many pile of leaves floating around and everything. So.
Do you ever see your cart tipped over? Is it too heavy sometimes, or?
No, I haven't seen any tipped over.
Okay.
Only afterwards after sometimes they drop it off. But
Right,
but
right,
not
right.
ahead of time. No.
Not ahead of time. Do you think you would need more than one cart?
Just a few times a year during the leaf season, I would need more than one cart.
Okay,
But,
okay.
But so far, we've worked our way around it.
Okay, and if you have extra, you just wait for the next week?
That's, yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's a big yard you have, like, right there.
Well, yeah, the trees, yes.
Right.
Too many of those oak trees, yes.
Gotcha. So it's good for leaves?
Yes.
Okay.
It works perfect for leaves, yes.
And your queen palms, I guess you're able to put the palm fronds in
Yeah, I'm
sometime?
not sure. I haven't had to deal with that yet because
Okay.
they're new, but yeah, I'll probably cut them up and put them in the can.
Gotcha. Okay, so overall, you like the carted
Yeah,
program?
I'm happy with it, yeah.
Okay, and if you have a lot of stuff, you can request a service for
yeah,
a
I believe so.
a claw
I just
truck.
haven't, but yes, I
Okay,
very good.
well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much,
All
sir.
right, no problem.
All right.
All right.
Dan Rather, I'm sorry, Himanshu, I have a question for you.
Sure.
The trucks, is a truck for yard waste different than a truck for garbage?
Two separate vehicles,
Two
yes.
separate vehicles. Okay, thank you.
The opening is a little bigger in terms of what's being dumped as well. So I just, again, I know previously, last time I came to the board, staff had visited carted yard waste program. I wanted to put my eyes on it firsthand. And as you'll see later, and I stand before you today recommending carted yard waste program. From seeing it firsthand, talking to the city manager in West Melbourne, again, there was some initial reluctance to it, but from their input, it's like people started using the carted yard waste program before it even started. They were very happy with that. Again, just happened to catch a resident there and got some positive feedback. But I know last public meeting, I do understand concerns about, maybe having an extra cart in the garage or not having a room or having certain HOAs that may not allow it. Certainly recognize some of those concerns. But overall, in terms of, I think both in terms of efficiency of pickup, I think, and the cleanliness of the program, I think there are opportunities there. I think I mentioned last time, one of the other reasons I like carded yard waste program is in the past, when we've had storm events, our hauler, has recommended utilizing recycling carts in an emergency to pick up a lot of extra garbage. I've been reluctant to recommend that to the board and to deploy that. However, having an additional cart in a storm event would allow residents to use that extra cart for garbage service, automated garbage service. And so I feel that, certainly, knock on wood, I'm not hoping for any storms here, but over the next 5 to 10 year timeframe that we're talking about, if we were to deploy a carded yard waste program, it gives us an ability to respond to our community in the event of a storm. So again, for some of those reasons, that's why I personally do like the carded yard waste program. At this time, happy to answer any questions that the board has about any of the pricing or what I presented. And then like you to open it up to public. I'm happy to answer any questions that the public has as well.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Himanshu, is that West Melbourne, do they have a separate distinct contract with their vendor, or is that through Brevard County?
It's a municipality that has a separate contract with Waste Management.
Right. Do you know if West Melbourne is subscription or universal?
Believe they're universal.
And didn't West Melbourne actually roll it out with the yard waste, and some people were reluctant to ask for the container, and then they saw their neighbors using it, and then ultimately it caught on pretty quick?
It did, and one of the things and we would do the same thing, is provide for deployment purposes, we would provide the 96-gallon cart, give residents 3 months to try it out. There would be smaller sizes available. Ultimately, if the resident wants to return the cart, it wouldn't change the price, if you will, in terms of what their monthly price would be. However, if they don't want to utilize it, it's something that they could return. Possibly in discussing that in negotiations, we could talk about that with the potential vendors about that. But it's too early to tell right now, and that's why we wanted to. Once we narrow down some options, I think we would have the ability to represent the board and what your wishes are.
And with the subscription to yard waste, it would be the same price. It'd be the same price subscription, whether you wanted the yard waste or not.
That's correct, right.
Okay.
Did you have any comments at this time? No. Commissioner Ehrman?
What's the approved container under the subscription thing? In other words, if we choose not to go with carded yard waste, what's the approved container?
It'd be the same program.
You can't use the old recycle bins
Yeah,
anymore,
it's the
right?
same program as now. So if one of the next decisions that I'm going to have after sort of public discussion and input is to ask the board to decide if you want to go with carded yard waste or not. And so out of the 4 options, to basically guide the process into narrowing it down to 2. Because we do have prices for sort of all 4 options. But depending on sort of the public input and the will of the commission about carded yard waste or not, then we could kind of focus in on either universal or subscription as decision number 3. But if we were to remain with customer provided cans, then there's a 4 cubic yard limit. They could use whatever container they want. They could use the old recycle bins. They could just put
It'd be manually picked up.
it would be manually picked up just like it's done now. So our subscription and universal plan with non-carded yard waste, allows for the resident to continue doing what they're doing with yard waste. Only option 3 and 4 included pricing if the hauler provided a cart for yard waste.
So just to kind of provide some parameters for where we're going in the decision-making process today, we are going to be asked to make a decision whether we want options that include carded yard waste or non-carded yard waste. Once we determine that, that will leave us with 2 decisions or 2 options, and from there, we'll have a discussion about those final two, which would be universal and subscription.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. So Commissioner Moss,
Yeah, I just have one question. At the last meeting, concerns were expressed about the size of it was a 96 gallon, it was too large for some people, it wasn't big enough for others. And did you say something at that point that they'd have 90 days where they could, what's the flexibility in terms of changing the size?
Sure.
If it were to be carded?
Sure. I think for deployment purposes, what we did last time and what we're proposing now in this RFP is provide a standardized cart. It's for garbage and yard waste, so it'd be 96-gallon cart size. Residents would keep that for 90 days, 3 months, and then they would have the ability to basically communicate to the hauler that this is too big for me, I want to go down to the smallest size, which is 35 gallons, or the middle size, which is a 64-gallon cart. So residents would have the opportunity, a one-time free exchange on what size fits their personal needs.
Thank you.
okay, if there is no other comments from the commissioners or staff, at this point, we will open it up. Yes.
Madam Chair, excuse me. Imatsu, with I did read where the carted yard waste reduced, say, workers' comp claims, injuries to the vendor. Did they provide you any information on, would that come into play in their pricing by eliminating or helping their risk management by eliminating worker comp issues from jumping off the truck and throwing the debris in the back? Was that one of those 170 questions?
They asked questions of us, but I don't think we asked that question of them. I think it was a sort of an implied on our part that by going with carted yard waste program, that it would reduce their risk and liability.
Which would equate to
Lower prices.
lesser for the taxpayer.
And Commissioner Lohr, in the pricing, which Himanshu can share again in a moment, you'll see it is a small bit more, but you're also including another cart. So they're having to incorporate that into their pricing as well.
Understood.
Yes.
With non-carded service, it does require an additional person on the truck. They tend to be 2 people to handle the truck, so the price has to be.
And that's what surprised me, that I was expecting carted yard waste to be the
You would
lowest price out of the 4 options. But because, as Bethany mentioned, because of the purchase of the cart, that additional cart, they're responsible for maintenance of that cart, replacement of the cart. If there's a wheel or something broken or the lid breaks, the hauler would have to replace that cart at no cost. So I think that's what there was. Ultimately, I was expecting more of a reduction for that, but from what we've seen, I think staff reported that they usually have a driver, 1 person in the back. Sometimes they have 2 people in the back, and especially after a storm or things like that, there's more resources being applied because of the number of phone calls and that we've seen in the past of having our service provider pick up additional volume. So yeah, we did expect a reduction in price by going to an automated service. Now, just like we see with automated, solid waste, automated recycling, the driver is in a air-conditioned cab. They're basically picking everything up. They don't have to worry about a snake or rodents inside the pile, and they're able to service our community in a more orderly fashion. One of the options we did include with all of this is a claw truck service. So residents that have a large volume of materials, they would be able to request a claw truck to come pick up the larger piles. It would be a direct cost between the customer and the hauler. So we didn't want to provide claw service to everybody and include that in the price. I think that would have just increased the price for everybody. We just said that those residents, there's some residents that may not even want a carted yard waste. But we try to get to the sort of as baseline of a price as we could for carted yard waste. And I think we've achieved that. And again, there's opportunity to negotiate maybe even some lower pricing.
You just mentioned they call it in. There has been some challenges with the call centers that are quite a few states over from us.
Sure.
that be in the discussion as well, that we would have a local call center?
It was an absolute requirement this time around, that over the past 9, 10 years, we've seen too many complaints about, again, we understand the efficiency of the hauler and having a centralized call center. I think it's certainly a tool that they utilize. But what we found is our residents, when they call in, either their hold times are long, and sometimes even though, they're able to look up your area code and identify that you're calling from Indian River County, even sometimes in Indian River County, we have City of Sebastian, which had a different service than, for example, unincorporated Indian River County. Right, twice once. So again, the operator's doing their best to get a call sheet to answer and respond to those questions. That's why in this RFP, we required a local call center. We asked additional questions to make sure there was enough staffing for the local call center so that the people that live here or work here are answering the phones to respond to the needs of our residents.
How often can you call for the claw truck?
It's on an as-needed basis, because it's, again, going to be we do have pricing in the RFP. The haulers have all responded as to what that cost would be. So that is a cost that's going to be approved by our agreement. So they can't charge more than that. But if the customer wants to call multiple times, they're certainly free to do that. There's not a limitation, because again, it would be a direct pass cost between the hauler and the customer. Subscription is easy because they're a direct customer of the hauler. If we go universal, we would only pay for the base service. The customer that has large volume of yard waste would pay for that extra service.
Gotcha.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions at this time? All right, then I'm going to open it up to the public. Anybody that would like to talk on this subject matter, please come to the podium. There's 2 podiums. You're welcome to queue up behind it. When you come up, please just state your name and address for the record, even though we're well aware of
Freddie
Mr.
Wolf,
Woolworth.
4590 57th Avenue, Vero Beach, Florida. Got one question. I know this automatic system would take care of the rats, take care of the snakes, but what about the 2 guys? Where would their jobs be then?
No, Freddie, good to see you, and that's a great question. One of the things is, you're right, I think the safety and whatnot would eliminate those positions. One of the things that we've done is again, with the local call center, is we've created positions as well for folks to be in the office working as well, to have local people. So we've kind of, again, we cannot guarantee that the person that was on the back of the truck would be kind of, called in at the call center. But I think there would be additional routes sort of created, automated truck, and even with compressed natural gas, they have certain routes and sizes that they can be deployed. So it's nothing that we can guarantee that person would be hired to do something else, but certainly we would hope that they would be able to be utilized for other services.
I really hope that you look deeply into that, because those are working people for families, and to see them unemployed because of the new animated system sounds good to everyone who's receiving the service, not to that family that needs that job.
Understood.
Thank you. Welcome, sir.
My name is John Genovese. I live at Seasons Terrace in Vero Beach, the Seasons community. I first want to thank the board for taking the interest of the people of Indian River County at heart. And to me, that's very important. What's important to me, too, is I've been on the board for 10 years in my community, and I'm not aware of any problems that weren't handled by Waste Management right away. I personally have called them on a few items, a few things that were done. Matter of fact, the garbage pail was missing and fell into the truck. They immediately responded, replaced the garbage pail, and no questions asked. So I think it's a fine company, it's a good service, and I again thank the board for taking the time for the people of Indian River County.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that. next. Welcome. Good to see you again today.
Thank you. Jeff Brower, 185 14th Avenue. Sorry I'm late. I have two questions, actually. Probably Himachi, you can answer that. How, with the other service providers, have they discussed how it's going to work with hurricane debris pickup?
So, no, good question. We have hurricane debris contracts in place in case of an emergency like that. What we do require is a hurricane plan from our waste hauler that's due annually. So they would provide, additional services in case of a storm. It would be an amendment to their contract that the board, staff would bring that to the board in case of a storm event. But they are required to provide a hurricane plan as part of their agreement, and it would be up to us and the board ultimately to approve that as to what additional services we would need of them. It's not guaranteed work. When it comes to a typical hurricane with a lot of yard debris and storm debris, the county already has separate contracts with teams that are sort of have the expertise of picking up that material.
My second question is, the other providers, have you asked them how they're going to deal with handicapped people who are unable to get their garbage curbside? Because there seems to be a problem with that too, an actually ongoing problem with a couple of my customers.
No, and the current contract that we have basically has what we call backdoor service for folks that have a medical necessity, and the same requirement is in the new RFP. Basically, the resident would provide the hauler with a note from their doctor, and the hauler would be required to get out of the truck and bring their cart from their garage down to the curb, empty it, and put it back. And again, that's something over the course over time. Sometimes we have seen incidences where maybe a new driver is on a route and they forget that that's a person that's designated for backdoor service. And sometimes, we get the phone call in. Lately, I have not seen that many calls about that, so.
Well, 1605 19th Avenue Southwest, he's been dealing with them for months
Okay.
and months and months. So I've actually had to reimburse him because I can't clean his bins because they're not being emptied. So something needs to be looked into.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anybody else? Oh, welcome, Glenn. Good to see you.
Hi, I'm Glenn Powell. I live at 12845 83rd Avenue in Roseland. And I also want to thank county staff and the county leaders in dealing with this way ahead of time and looking at all the options and having these open forums. I was really interested in the conversation about the carts for the landscaping. And I have to say, I have 14 houses that would be useless to me. I mean, I have my own house and I have a lot of rentals. And when my tenants do yard work, or if I help my elderly tenants do their yard work, they don't just trim one bush and the stuff fits into one cart. You do 5 bushes. You trim 3 sable palms, and 1 cart, 2 carts doesn't really do it. I could see if we're in an area where it's leaves and autumn and you put things in the cart, that makes sense, but not with the type of yard waste that, as I was sitting back there and listening to this, it's like it just wouldn't work. I mean, sometimes I have the long palm fronds, which is easier for the staff now to just, if I lay them out all in one direction, they go out of the truck, they pick them up, and they throw it out. If I put it in a cart, the carts topple over. If I have something that's thorny, like bougainvilleas, I could fill 1 cart, and that's it. I mean, it's too fluffy. If I have traveler's palms or white bird of paradise, if I trim like a fraction of one of them, it fills a cart. So what the staff has always told me that pick up the trash is just lay it out orderly so we could just grab it and put it away. I think, 1 cart, 2 carts just wouldn't do it. And then also when I do yard work and when I see my neighbors do yard work and I see my tenants do yard work, they don't say, okay, today I'm going to trim 1 bush. They trim all the bushes. They trim 5 sable palms. And, you know, this limitation of 1 or 2 carts and the sizing of it, I just don't think it works. And if we get rid of just picking up the piles that are neatly laid out, I think we really lose something. And this proposed carts, it would be just useless for me and for my tenants. I can really get the good part where no one really has to touch it and you don't deal with the snakes and everything else. I mean, I get that. But I just don't think it's practical in our community, especially our community that's not, you know, the nice, recently platted properties with the sod, the 3 queen palms, and the crotons. Yeah, you pick up a frond, you put it in the cart. But there's a lot of our county, and you know, most of my houses that just wouldn't be appropriate. So thank you for the opportunity to talk, and thank you for all the hard work.
Thank you, Glenn. Anybody else? Welcome, good to see you.
You too. Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Name and
I'm
address real
sorry,
quick.
Margot Sadnikovich, 7575 First Street Southwest, Vero
you.
Beach. Just a few questions to get an idea. I like the way you're smiling when I say my last name.
Well, I know you're going to go over there and spell it for her later.
Quick questions first. So how do we pay right now for yard waste? Does it include in a real estate tax? Yes, no?
No, it's not in the real estate tax. It's if you're a subscriber for service in unincorporated Indian River County, that your quarterly invoice or bill includes weekly yard waste service.
Okay. Again, because I live in the country, I don't have any waste. But the trash, every single family pays separately, right? And it is, I believe, on a quarterly basis?
So if you're a subscriber, you get a yard waste you get a garbage cart. And so you get that picked up once a week, and you also get yard waste service picked up once a week, and then bulk is on-call basis right now. The future, the only change would be for subscription, non-carted service, it would remain carted garbage once a week, yard waste once a week manually, and bulk would be routed once a week.
Okay, so, and right now, how much it is quarterly that the owners pay for trash?
It's $11.16, so $33 and change.
$33
quarterly.
a month, a month? And-
Quarterly,
No, a
quarterly.
quarter.
I mean quarterly, correct, yes. And the recycle is free.
No, it's not free. Right now, it's on the annual assessment, so we call it universal recycling. So part of the landfill fee on your tax bill,
Okay, so that comes from the tax bill?
yes.
Okay, so are you going to get from these companies approximate or estimate for how much they will be charging for a hurricane debris? So at least everyone can be aware, how much is that going to be, or how is it going to work?
So we have separate contracts with wholly different companies to deal with hurricane debris that's not part of this
deal, okay.
contract. What we have asked them is to provide a plan in the event of a hurricane, but we contract with somebody else, totally separate.
Okay. And last thing I also wanted to mention is kind of, I agree with the gentleman who has properties. Do they have trucks that actually, to avoid these snakes and rats, all these risks with, they picking up and?
Like claw trucks, like where
Yes.
they have, yes, they do.
Is there any way that can be used? Because, again, I absolutely agree. If it is a small subdivision where they do have a few leaves of the palm trees and et cetera, but if it is a big yard work, there's a lot of yard
So-
trash that,
So part of this RFP process, depending on which option we go with, if we go with a carted option for yard waste, the resident would still have the ability to call the hauler for the claw truck. If they decided they wanted to do that because they have more yard waste than would fit, then they would be billed separately for that.
The owners will be billed
The
separately.
owners would be billed
And
separately.
it's in the which option, on 1 or 2? Is it subscription or universal?
For 3 or 4 is where the carts are, and then if it was universal, they would be billed separately, right? Am I,
To clarify, we have the claw truck service for all 4 options.
There you go.
It's available for all 4 options at an additional cost. So if we remain non-carted yard waste, there's a 4 cubic yard limit. But if a customer trims, like the previous gentleman mentioned, their whole yard, and they have more than 4 cubic yards, then the hauler was obligated to only pick up 4 cubic yards. And the customer can request a claw truck to come pick up additional materials and pay the hauler a separate price for that pickup.
Okay, and if I will decide to take my debris to a Oslo Road dumpster, is that free? Still going to be free?
to the convenience center or the landfill?
Landfill.
Yeah, so both the requirement at the customer convenience centers and in the landfill still applies. Anything that's less than 3 inches in diameter, a certain size, you can bring to the convenience center and the landfill at no cost. If it's large materials, anything over 3 inches in diameter or whatnot, it has to go to the landfill, and there is a fee for that material.
Okay. Let me ask a last question, please. Is there any of these options are actually benefits county, not the owners, county, the government?
Does any option benefit the government?
I mean,
I don't really understand that question, but I would say that we, if you're calling us the government, are here to serve the residents of the county. So whatever benefits the residents of the county, maybe I'm missing what you're trying to ask.
I see. So I wouldn't call you a government because you are in reality also the owners of each property.
Okay.
I would say like more administration that does it somehow benefits, let's say the, or which option will benefit administration. What I'm trying to see if there is going to be a conflict between the owners that would be our best interest and administrative, is there will be any additional income from that
I
or
don't-
something?
No.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. So there's no additional income to,
No, we're not making money on this in any
okay,
way.
okay. Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? All right. Thank you, everybody, for your input and the input that we have received prior to this meeting and at our last ones. Machu, next decision point, I guess we're at that point,
That's correct.
if I'm following your slides correctly.
That's correct, Commissioner. So we're on decision number 2. We're going to kind of guide in narrowing down the process. And again, I can put back the slide that I think all of you have a copy of it, but there's a slide that has all the pricing, if you will, on an annual basis and also on a residential monthly basis. But as staff, SWID staff recommends carted yard waste services. We feel it's a safer, more efficient means of collecting routine yard waste in our community while providing an equitable cost to all yard waste customers and a direct cost to those customers requiring excessive yard waste services. Again, when I think about the future, the next 5 to 10 years of our community, whatever potential growth that we may have in our community, having a carted yard waste program, I feel fits with our growing community, and that's why I stand behind my recommendation for a carted yard waste program.
Okay, so commissioners, we are being asked at this point to decide between yes on carted yard waste or no on carted yard waste. Customer provided or part of this RFP. So Comments, questions, concerns on that question?
Madam Chair, I motion to go with carted yard waste services through the vendor.
Okay, is there's a second? Questions, comments? Do you guys have any input on that? Nope. No, okay, so the motion is to,
Big boat floater. Not a big boat floater.
the motion is to go with the carted yard waste provided by the vendor in a vendor-provided cart. Anybody from the public want to speak on that? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, that motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Moss dissenting. All right, next decision point.
So again, I wanted to bring up the slide on the annual price. Now, with the decision that you just made about carted yard waste, we're looking at option number 3 and option number 4. I did, for purposes of whatnot, looking at option 3, comparison between subscription and universal. These are current pricing that you have. Again, you have an annual price comparison of 24.6 versus 32.7 for subscription, or a lower pricing of 22.7 versus 24.6 for the top 2 ranked firms. And it's also on the right side, we do have it broken down by sort of a monthly comparison. This does include the recycling fee that's on the non-ad valorem assessment. So even though when you look at option number 3, one thing to sort of keep in mind is that the price comparison, the 784, 551, that price would be on the assessment. If you go with subscription, the comparison right now is 1752 versus 3202 in terms of a quarterly billing by the hauler directly to the customer. There is a savings by going to universal. As you can see, the reduction on to 1537 and 1957. So I wanted to just lay that out for you.
I have a question. What is the current price for recycling per month that's on the bill? I'm sure you already went over it, but I don't remember.
I thought we had a slide.
There's been some, 2 something, was it 2 something?
Yeah, I have it. It's right here. Okay, $2.94. $2.94
Okay, thank you. All right.
That's each home. Each residence has
per month, and that's on the annual assessment right
Right.
now.
So
And
if you're-
that's where I wanted to compare that here on this slide, the 784, and these are initially proposed rates, but that would impact all residents of Indian River County.
Right, so the slide you were on where it showed the breakdown per month, for those that have subscription service, you can't really compare your current subscription bill to this bill because you're including recycling in that, so
Right.
it's a little bit more than what, you see what I'm saying? Yeah. So I just want to point that out before everybody kind of ran with some of that.
Can I add to what you're saying?
Yep,
Is that, and the recycle bill's still gonna stay on the tax bill at the end of the year?
That's correct.
Even if we go subscription, you pay the garbage pickup, but your recycling, the 784 is gonna be on your tax
Right,
bill.
right.
And it's like $96 a year or something like that.
That's correct.
Okay.
Sounds like there's a good negotiation point there.
okay. I'm sorry.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
One question for you, Monty, on option 3 with waste management, then going to universal with waste management. Why the drastic reduction from 32 or 3753 to 2506?
One of the sort of advantages for the hauler that we recognize between subscription and universal was that the change to universal would basically eliminate the billing by the hauler. They would no longer have a quarterly bill that goes out to the customer. They would avoid those costs. There would be an avoidance of potentially a collection, person that's going after folks that are not paying their bill on time. And so by going to universal, just like we have for universal recycling right now, we designate a fixed amount of single-family homes and multifamily homes in our county. And every month, based on the certificate of occupancy report that we get from the building departments, we increase or decrease the amount of counts for single-family and multifamily throughout Indian River County for recycling. When it comes to this decision of subscription to universal, we would do that same sort of numbers for unincorporated Indian River County residents. And the hauler would monthly get paid on a universal basis. So that's where we felt like, and again, it's evident here, there is some slight reduction by FCC, a substantial reduction by Waste Management for going to universal.
Right, so if we explain it that, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, that we're eliminating our accounting or lessening our accounting or billing, instead of getting a monthly or quarterly check from our residents, the county's gonna pay them per month, I presume. But I don't see the great reduction from FCC to universal, but I do see it with Waste Management.
I would assume that part of that reduction is because you have a baseline, you know how many people you're going to be providing service for versus subscription. Even though they have numbers currently, it's still a roll of the dice as far as how many may or may not subscribe or drop out. So with universal, it's almost like a guaranteed customer base number you can base your pricing on.
And right now, our subscription rate is around 70%, so now they're sort of guaranteed that additional 30%. And then every month, I mean, I think last, Sean Leesky's here, from what I recall, about 100 new water meters being installed. I don't know if that number's gone up or not recently. So 100 new homes are being added, if you will, per month. So those are additional customers that they're guaranteed on a universal basis, getting paid for monthly. What it also does is, for us, is, again, we mentioned about the challenges for customers that do not subscribe for garbage service right now. What we've seen in parts of the county, I have recycling staff that can tell you that they go out and do the audits. Certain areas of our community, we find rental communities sometimes have this issue. They're using their recycling cart for garbage service. And what happens here with Universal is we would send an address to the hauler saying, this is a new CO, here's 100 new homes in the county. They would deliver a garbage cart and then now a yard waste cart to those 100 new homes. So maybe even before they've kind of moved in and brought in their moving truck, a garbage cart and a yard waste cart and a recycling cart would show up to that house because, and we say within 30 days they have to get those carts delivered, to those new residents.
That's
So
upon their CO.
upon the CO. And we start paying for them, starting next month, the following month. They deliver the cart and we start paying for those additional homes.
Madam Chair, thank you. Since we've been discussing this, and I'm eager to hear from those who attended today, if they so choose. Been getting a lot of calls. I'm sure you all been getting calls, and I do go out to the community and ask. We've gotten some emails, some conversation, and it's more than apparent that there's now with nearly 70% of the subscription service current in Indian River County. That means we have 30% non-subscribers. If you ask the subscribers if they would like service to be universal, it's a yes, it's a given. When you ask the non-subscribers about universal, it's a guaranteed no. They've chosen that fact. They've chosen that manner. But I want to look at the reasons why. Reasons why is we have a rather high senior population. They generate about this much waste in a week. They don't need a 96-gallon container. They got to push this cart back and forth. Then we have to get somebody with a doctor's note to have to move their cart back and forth. There are many in that that category. Most of the 55 and over communities mandate it, and it's part of their payment. And these people are on fixed incomes. And I think it's boorish for us to even consider universal, to impart upon them waste service that they may or may not need. In addition, if you have a family of 4 and you have a crowded home and you need to have that service. Now, this is quite contrary to what you could tell where I came from. Those trucks came every day, whether you wanted them or not. And it's highly mechanized. And they have trucks with dual trucks, and recycling goes in one side, 2 guys jump out of the truck, and you got clear bags, and you got so much governmental intervention with trash. I see that there are so many people that wish to just leave it be. They love their convenience centers. They go to their convenience centers, and those subscribers still have their pickup service. So in my heart, I believe option 3 is the best. It's almost leaving it alone, but jazzing it up a bit. Leaving it as subscription service with carts. This way, those who have this service will still have the service. You know, the price is going to go up, but the price has been going up every year anyway. Okay? We have that CPI. CPI has been notching it up every year. And we have amendments, and the relationship is there. If we leave it that way, we are creating less harm to our community and continuing good service to the curbside folks who want curbside, and not for the others who basically generate that much trash in a week. Depends on if they have a dog or not, and which cart they're going to put that in. So I would like to propose option number 3.
Okay, I want to ask a question real quick, Hamachu. Hamachu, do we need to make this subscription universal decision today? Can we negotiate with the top ones, whatever we want to do, for both options and see what pricing comes back? Or would you prefer that?
It's a great question. You know, we at the pleasure of the board. So if the board is not comfortable with a decision on subscription versus universal based on the current pricing, if you like us to negotiate with the top-ranked firms to get final pricing on option 3 and 4, if that's the board's desire, we certainly, the negotiation team, working with the county administrator, will certainly take that direction and come back to you at next meeting with some final pricing. We were looking for a decision that one way or the other that would help us narrow down the focus in negotiations. But I certainly understand the point that Commissioner Fletcher is making. One thing, and I'm going to throw out a Hail Mary, I haven't talked to our consultant about this, but when we did our master plan and we utilized Kessler Consulting, one of the things that was brought up years ago was pay-as-you-throw program. And looking back at our consultants to kind of see is you know, again, this is something that I have not even kind of talked to our consultant about. But I'm aware, and in other communities, people have to go get the garbage bags, right? They pay for those garbage bags in advance, and then they put them out, and they have to be those specialty bags that they put out. So the customer is in control of how much garbage they're generating and also how much money they're spending. You know, I don't know if we can add that as a negotiation tool, but if we were to possibly look at universal and sort of negotiate a pay-as-you-throw cart size rates, if you want, then again, I can't guarantee that at this point. We haven't talked to the haulers, but that would be an ability for a senior resident that's producing very little garbage and they have a 35-gallon cart, if we're able to identify those number of customers, I mean, with the ability to track cart sizes, the inventory control we have, what's in our agreement, the hauler knows exactly what cart size you have, your neighbor has, everybody in the community has. We could potentially look at that to assist residents. They may not be generating that much waste. Again, I'm just openly talking to you as a potential option. I can't guarantee if the haulers would want to play ball with that. I don't know. We don't have numbers on how many customers that would apply to.
Was that covered in the RFP?
No, it was not.
Okay.
We're changing.
I would stay away from something like
All
that.
right.
Maybe that's not an option.
It's not,
One of the things,
it's either 3 or 4.
cost factor, when we look at somebody who has, not Glenn, has 14 residences. Now, whether that 14 residences has pickup or not, now will be mandatory pickup there. That means that's 14 bills. And, right now, and obviously there are renters. The renters have the decision whether they want pickup or not. And if it goes universal, now the owner has, the universal will be paying 14 bills regardless. Now, I don't believe that there's going to be tremendous benevolence, not on the owner of 14 residences or 20 residences or 2 residents. They're going to pass off the cost factor. So now, the renters are going to have to get an increase. We're talking about affordable housing and rents. Either way, I just think it's a mechanism that we can avoid so much and reduce government and deliver the service that people want, that they've grown accustomed to, by going with subscription service. And, we talked about the claw. That's nice to have that on call. But if you have the claw on a regular basis going around, everybody's lawns will be destroyed. Okay? Every jurisdiction that has claws, it's got to dip a certain rate. They're very good at what they do. Eventually, and we've seen it during the hurricanes, when we've had to have massive claw service, that there's a lot of holes in that lawn. So I'd like to make a motion to move option 3.
I'll second. For discussion, 'cause I want to discuss it.
All right, go for it.
I tend to agree with what Commissioner Fleischer says. When I look at this and do the math on this thing, and 70% of if you have 70% of a county's business, that's a pretty good chunk. That's a pretty good chunk of business. So there's a business model right there that you're looking at to say, okay, well, that's 70%. That's a very valuable amount. 30%, as we know, 30% are people that don't generate a lot of garbage. They go to a convenience center, and excuse my phrase, some of them are lazy dirtbags. They don't just throw garbage on the ground or put it in a recycle container or whatever they do with it. Put it in somebody's bin somewhere and are trying to beat the system. I realize that. But some of that 30%, again, is very law-abiding, very, very caring citizens of the community and all the stuff that don't generate a lot of garbage. The difference between subscription and universal in options 3 and 4 is that the subscription is almost $2 million more a year, $1.9 million. It's that difference here on the subscription, but again, when you look at the price, it's only about $5 a month. So you're looking at the price. So people have the opportunity to choose whether they want to pay that additional $5 a month. And I think we were all shocked at the rates that FCC proposed for subscription service. It wasn't high. I'll be honest with you, when we first talked about this a year ago and we'd had our discussions, we all thought the subscription rate was gonna go through the roof. And it didn't go through the roof. It stayed, you know, I guess palatable right now. So we're looking at $5 to $6 a month increase. People could choose that. If we put the tax on it, even though it is you could say it's a savings, you're saving $2 million a year. That additional money is being taxed on the 30% that don't do it. Again, I'm not gonna say that all 30% of the people are good citizens, because they're not. So I think that's important to recognize. I would almost, I'm gonna support option 3 right now, but I would like us to take a look at it where we're at it's gonna start in 25, where we're at in 2027, to take a relook at this and see if we need to, if it's time, if we're not getting the results we want from option 3, that we need to look at it again in 2 years.
I don't think we're gonna be able to switch
you
it.
can't do
We're
that.
not gonna be able to switch it mid-contract. I mean,
That's what I'm asking him. I'm not saying, I don't know, that maybe
We
can.
did put that in our current agreement. We were not successful in getting our current hauler to switch to universal, even though we had a provision for that in our current agreement. We could certainly look at negotiations with this future contract to see if we can get a lock-in starting price on universal. It would adjust with CPI, like it is written in the current contract. But it's gonna be a potential negotiation down the road, 2027, with the hauler to see if they would, again, we'd have to get legal involved to make sure that it's written with an iron claw that if the board in the future exercised a universal option, that the hauler would agree to make that switch.
Well, I think we've seen the results. You answered it a minute ago, because some of these are favorable. They're favorable because the company doesn't have to bill, or they don't have to worry about collections.
Yep.
So if you look at this in 2 years and you decide to go to universal, that actually sounds like a pretty good deal for the hauler. I'm not saying you change the rating and you don't cancel who ends up being the final selection. You just say, okay, well, you don't have to collect anymore. We find it's better to go to universal. I wouldn't think they would just do flips and say, hey, that's great. We don't have to bill or collect anymore if we don't do the subscription.
And Commissioner Ehrman, if you're wanting to do that in the future, then I think what Commissioner Adams mentioned a few minutes ago was if the board was to direct us to go negotiate with the top 2 firms on both option 3 and 4, come back to you next month with the best and final offer for subscription, best and final offer for universal, then you would have a final contract price, starting price October 1, 2025, as to what that rate would be for our residents, whether it's on a subscription basis or a universal basis. That gives you a month to reconsider that decision, and it gives us the ability in negotiation to come back with a final and best and final
Actually, I'm
offer.
okay with that.
Madam Chair, that,
does that mean that you're, okay.
That's all.
Are you still seconding his motion?
Well, no, I'll still support his motion. I'll support it. But I'd be okay with that if we choose not to.
His
that's not my
motion is to choose option number 3. But if you want
I'd
to,
like to amend. Commissioner Fleischer, would you like to?
I'm pretty strong on the
he's not gonna
subscription.
amend his motion.
Based on what I've had the interaction with the community, I can't see even considering universal when subscription will be available.
But you could rescind your second if you do not want to support his motion that he's stated.
I don't have a problem with that. I think it might be a good idea. We might be able to reduce the $2 million in difference with it. So, I mean, I don't know, but I'm okay with delaying the decision for.
Do you want to put the camera on the commission?
Universal or subscription. I think you know where I stand right now, so what would you like me to do?
I would like for you to do whatever you're comfortable with. and whatever you want to do. I just want to make sure that both of you guys understand that his motion
Well, I
is.
understand.
Okay, is to move forward with option 3,
Right.
and you're seconding that to vote to do that. However, it seems like you may have changed your mind to go to both options, and if that's the case, he's not going to amend his motion. You can rescind your second.
Well, I'll just second his motion then.
You will second his motion. Okay, the second stands. Commissioner Moss?
Yes, thank you. I favor subscription, definitely. We have many seniors on fixed incomes with very little garbage, and we heard that last time. But in addition to that, we also have a substantial number of snowbirds who would not be able to opt out of universal coverage. So I definitely favor a subscription service. If we could just vote on subscription versus universal, though, because I did not vote on the carded, and option 3 includes carded. You know, we already, if we're just talking about option 3, it's subscription with carded. So,
Well,
so I'm in favor of subscription. Yes, I'm in favor of subscription, but if you look at this, I'm talking about option 3. Option 3 is subscription with carded. We
We
already
just-
voted on.
Already voted on carded.
we
We already
voted
voted on carded.
Decided on carded.
And, right, and I didn't vote for carded, so.
She voted no.
I voted no. I voted no on carded. So I'm saying, technically, if you want to get into the weeds on it.
I really don't
voted
want to get
no.
into the weeds on
I
anything.
voted no on carded, so,
That's Richard of Waste.
Okay, but that motion has been decided.
Right.
So now there is
We're
a
not
different
revisiting
oh, okay.
carded versus non-carded.
motion.
Okay,
You're
so I
either
can
going,
vote, so I can vote yes on option.
you
You
can.
can vote, and anybody,
And I'm in favor.
I just want to be clear. Anybody can vote any way they want and make any motion they want and second any motion or not second any motion that they want from here till eternity.
And we're
You
not gonna-
guys have that ability,
We're not going to
period.
cover the color of the cards. We'll leave it up to them.
Commissioner, I just want to clarify, though, that, and from what and the county attorney can clarify, but as the motion stands for option number 3, subscription, then the decision 4 would be for us to negotiate with the top 2 ranked firms on the subscription with carded yard waste service only. We would not come back to you with a price for universal service. I just want to make sure I clarify that.
Correct.
That's correct.
That's correct.
So if you want both pricing, then we would need a different motion.
Trying to sell both pricing, huh?
I think I'm just trying to make sure that everybody up here understands what they're voting on.
That's correct.
I pray that
So there's no confusion in the future. Commissioner Lord, do you have any comments on the motion that's on the floor? Or would you like for me to restate it?
No, I heard
Okay.
it clear. Thank you,
we had some clarification already.
yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. You know, we're talking about a $2 million swing right now from 4 to 3 before the pencil sharpening happens. Have to keep that in mind. Let's keep in mind that 55% of our recycling is contaminated with garbage. Let's keep in mind that we're talking about an October 1, 2025 contract, long ways from now, with a potentially 10-year contract to this, 2035. We all know what our population is doing. We all know that we're called the Treasure Coast. In our opinion, Indian River County is the gem and diamond of the Treasure Coast. We're sitting here on April 24th of 2024 thinking about subscription versus universal, but we're not thinking about 28, 29, 30, 31. So I am leaning towards option 4, not only for the taxpayers, and I know, and I get the burden that you've brought up, Commissioner Fletcher, I understand that. But what does Indian River County stand for? Does it stand for illegal dumping? Does it stand for rental people that are throwing their trash in the backyard? I know it's a burden on the renters, I get all that. But what is the image of Indian River County? And I ask you to think about that for the next 11 and a half years. Because the decision we make now, and by the way, I completely disagree with revisiting this in a couple years about universal, because that affects how the vendors have already made their bids. Additionally, You know, there's a process through the state that Imatsu is very familiar with on how to get this on the tax roll. So having said that, you know, oftentimes we forget that our recycling is on the tax roll. And I didn't remember a lot of belly aching over that several years ago. But I get it, the economy was different, I understand that. But as we move forward, we have to look at universal, it's the industry standard, we know that. Everyone around us is doing that. I think it's going to reduce a lot of, again, not to be redundant, the illegal dumping and probably lessen some of the load at our transfer stations. And we know our transfer stations are here to stay. We've all agreed on that already. So with that, I can't go with option 3. I'm sticking with option 4.
So for my several cents, my interest, like I said at the beginning of the meeting, is getting the best price for the residents. And the majority of the residents that are gonna be using this service, not today, but up the road. And I completely agree with Commissioner Lohr's comments. I think that, you know, whether we have to take into account the recycling and the stuff that's going on with that. We have to take into account the impact that that's having on our landfill and our landfill system and look at that program as a whole. Quite frankly, the reason I asked Hamachu about negotiating on both options is because I'm interested in getting to the best price for the majority of the residents today and the majority of the residents that are going to be moving here in the future. And I do think that if we allow that negotiation to happen, the pencils will be sharpened and we will get a better price. I think everybody has heard what we have to say and what we feel, but I'm not really prepared necessarily to move and support fully subscription at this point without really having an opportunity to look at what the pencil sharpened subscription versus universal would be, because we're always going to have an elderly population. I mean, for goodness sakes, this is Florida. We're like the retirement capital of the world. We're always going to have people that are going to be bad actors, yes, but how do we create a program that's whole and addressing the needs of the county in the next 12 years? I mean, because this isn't going to go into effect, to your point, for another 2 years, and then we're stuck with it for 10 years. So it's a big decision to make, and I think it does need to be based a lot on price. And I just feel like it's 70% today of our population. And I understand what you're saying about 30 versus 70, and all those 70 are always going to be yay, and a lot of the 30s are always going to be no. And I understand that, you know, elderly population may not produce a lot of garbage, and you have to have special services for people that are unable to bring their garbage up. But 5 years from now, that population is going to be astronomically larger. So the 70% that you're talking about today is going to be a whole lot more people. And that 30% is probably going to change as well as these things are required over time. So because of the different things from an educational perspective on people using their recycling bins as garbage, different renter issues, multifamily, we have more multifamily going in right now. So I'm not saying I'm not for subscription in the long run. What I'm saying is I want to make sure that at the end of the day, what numbers we're getting are the best and final numbers on both options, and we're basing universal versus subscription on the best and final numbers. Right now, we're basing universal versus subscription on initial numbers and initial thoughts from each company, not final thoughts and final negotiations. And that's where I'm more comfortable making the universal versus subscription
Madam Chair,
decision.
I believe the RFP would not allow us, now we cleared up the water early in the meeting. And I'm good with it now because, as the administrator mentioned. But now to complicate this and have our team go back and talk to the top two, which I'm comfortable with now, and say, sharpen your pencils on universal or subscription. Well, now we're opening up another can of worms. It's not in the RFP. So either today we're gonna vote option 3 and move forward, or option, well, it doesn't look like an option 4, but I would just ask you to look at the future of this county, what we stand for, and the greater gain that we will have in this community with less trash piles, with less shoddy neighborhoods. And we're moving too fast as a county to go down that path, in my opinion.
Yes, Mr. DeBrawl.
2 points. This is the last opportunity that you will have for the next 11 years to take a look at this issue. You know, you're going to get your best price now. And if you do decide to take a look at option 3 and 4 and get the best price, it costs you nothing. It costs you nothing to take a look at the options that will be made available to you. You have the benefit of having them negotiating, you have the benefit of them giving you your best price on both options that will last for the next 11 years. And you will not have that negotiating power again for 11 years. And it costs nothing to take a look at those 2 options.
Thank you. And I would just say that realistically, everybody knows what each other's numbers are now. So if they want, no matter what we decide in this decision right now, if they want our business, they're gonna have to beat each other. And that's the bottom line. Whether it's universal or subscription or a mix of 2 or negotiating on both, they all know what their numbers are. And I would guess that number 1 is gonna drop, number 2 is gonna try to beat number 1, number 3, if we go that way, would try to beat all of them, number 4, all down the line. That's not what's proposed. I know, I'm just going down a rabbit hole, but they all know what each other's numbers are. And I would agree with Mr. DeBrawl. It doesn't cost us anything to ask them to bring back as many options, not as many, but to look at those 2 options and bring it back better numbers.
Yes. Madam Chair, but if we're able to get the best price today only, and then 11 years from now, we wouldn't be able to do that, I get it, but there's a CPI as well. Price is gonna go up. So no matter what gets torn down, will be rebuilt up. There's a cost of doing business, and it's gonna be shared by those who subscribe to the service. So I can alleviate that by not committing the taxpayer to that game and that theory of reducing the risk of an increase. It's gonna happen either way. How many amendments have we had for all of the contracts? Continually. Can you identify one of the last amendments on one of our haulers? What number we were up to?
Sure, I think in the 20.
Right,
For public
okay.
services, right.
Okay, and that's recent history, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, things change. There's a cost of doing business, and those rates will change. So there is no safety marker in committing to, let's see if we can chisel down the price on both of them.
Well, there's a
I don't
cap on
engage
the
in that.
CPI. I
There-
mean,
there's-
it's not a true CPI or cost of doing business increase. It's capped at a certain percentage to our benefit, not to the hauler's benefit.
There is a cap, but again, the likelihood of it not being imposed is very, very, very slim. It just costs more between labor, equipment, availability. shipping fees. I mean, it all adds up.
Yes, Commissioner Moss.
So I think it's a safety factor to commit.
Commissioner Moss?
I just have a question. So you're thinking, I just want to be sure I understood what you said. So you're thinking it's better to have them come back with the two options. You know, the basic facts won't change, but the numbers might. Is that what you're thinking? We might get a better deal,
That is
if you will?
yes, that is how I feel today, that we may, most likely will, get a better deal
Okay.
if on universal versus subscription, if they are allowed to negotiate on both and bring those back at the next meeting, the top two or whatever.
Yeah. I'm okay with that.
But if that is, there is a motion on the floor, however, that does not make that happen, so.
Commissioners.
Go ahead, I'm
Sorry, I was going to say, I appreciate all the discussion. I think what I was going to do is to make a staff recommendation and then allow public input and allow maybe a final vote on that. But I know you have a motion on the floor. But as staff, for the future of Indian River County, for what we see, what's going on with recycling contamination, with illegal dumping. Some of you may recall, you designated me as your green government coordinator. We went through the process of becoming certified green county. I was proud of that moment when we did that. We still have some signs across our buildings designating, Indian River County as a green county. But one of the things that I still remiss about is we still have folks going on throughout our community doing cleanups for illegal dumping sites throughout our community. We get reports from the Sheriff's Department about illegal dumping sites. People, I hate to say this, I know Commissioner Herman mentioned this, some people are lazy in our community. They do not take the time. We all generate waste. It has to go somewhere. And there are people that do the right thing, and there's people that don't. And we look at the future. We don't have somebody that's sweeping our streets every day, 7 days a week. And by having a hauler that can go directly to the house where the waste is generated and properly get put into our landfill, and to make sure our recycling is top notch. If we ever want to build a recycling facility in this county and process our own recycling, we're not going to be able to invite a potential vendor to come build a facility here if we don't have sort of universal garbage collection, because they know that there's abuse of universal recycling going on with subscription service. So when I look at the next 10, 11 years, and if we want to attract a recycling plant and process our own recyclables here, then I strongly recommend, that we look at universal garbage collection for our community.
Can I comment?
Yes, of course.
I really don't disagree, but I look at a 70% margin of business of customers by a business, and I look at 30% that not all the 30% are bad citizens.
Sure.
As to what are we really doing? We're increasing taxes. We're putting over the difference between the two would be $2 million that's put on the back of the taxpayer with regards to this. I am very pro recycling and very pro wanting to have somebody come in and do our own recycling here in the county. I don't know if that, I don't think all that 30% of the people don't jeopardize it. I think that I've been around here long enough and with my career and stuff, that there's always going to be bad actors. It'll never be perfect. There's people that's going to dump their garbage on the side of the road because they're just that kind of person. So I think it's a matter of choice right now for me is why I say subscription. I'm okay if it doesn't go my way. I just feel that's where we are right now because of the 70% in a business model is just, you don't get that in any business.
Sure.
McDonald's doesn't have 70% of the fast food business in the country. God, what'd they give? They've given an arm and a leg for that.
And I think as one of the negotiation team members, though, what I think as what County Attorney mentioned is we have the ability to go negotiate, come back to you in a month with the best and final offer for both subscription and universal, you'll have a final price that you'll know that will impact either 70% of your residents or 30% of your residents. And, I rather at least have an opportunity to bring that number back to you in a month.
And like I said, I'm okay with that, but I'm not changing my motion.
That's fine. Yeah, and
One other thing, Hamachi, when you said, you go back and we'll negotiate both, I think we're talking about contamination, which is not 50% contamination.
Supposedly 50% of our recycling is contaminated.
No.
In certain communities, I mean, Sue Flax here.
Now you just, certain communities.
Certain parts of our community, probably over 55%.
Right.
I mean,
And in others, and it equates to an overall of about 14.5% when it gets down to the recycling
I think it's more like
facility.
20,
Is it
20, higher than 20%.
26%. Okay. So, yeah, no, it's not, yes, there are certain areas that there is an increase in occurrences,
Right.
okay?
I mean,
That's
depending
where we
on what
come in.
decision we make, I mean, in the future, I may come back and request the board for some additional code enforcement assistance.
There you go.
To
There you
do
go.
that.
And maybe that's an answer, okay? A lack of enforcement does not constitute an additional cost factor, okay? That's a concern. But in essence, I have a concern that the reduction will be contaminated because there's dual tracks. And there's a preference by the hauler, and there's an obvious preference by others to go in one modality or the other. So I believe that the reduction will be contaminated. It will not be the best possible price for the subscriber or the universal citizen. I think it's this way we've seen such disparity in the original numbers where, Sheriff, you explained that when you brought out one of them, you couldn't realize why they couldn't reduce so much, and then it's gonna happen again. So I don't think there's any benefit in allowing for both options to come forward. I don't think we're going to gain anything. If not, their preference will come out. That's about it. So I think it may only contaminate our decision in the future. That's my thought.
all right.
Madam Chair, if I
Yes.
could, real quickly.
Of course.
I can say that our staff, particularly Imachu's team, we recognize him and his team for the awards they've won.
Yep.
We recognize the hard work that they've put in. I've had him speak to groups for me on occasion, and we have to trust our staff. That is what our administrator is building this team about. I think sometimes we have situations where sometimes we are sitting up here and we doubt our staff. But they are the cornerstone of what we do. They do a fantastic job. Option 4 is their staff recommendation for a lot of things that we've already talked about today, to include the preservation of our community and our county. And as Mr. DeBraw said, this is a one-shot deal. You're gonna live with it for 11 years, and by going back in a few years and entertaining Universal, that's not the deal. That's not what our vendors bid it on. And we can't go that way. So I would, just like Imachi was pleading with us for option 4, and I'll stick with that, but that doesn't look like it's gonna happen.
All right, thank you. We do have a motion on the floor, so since it was made quite some time ago, I will try to summarize that. The motion by Commissioner Flesher is to move forward with negotiating on option 3 only, which is subscription carded yard waste service. Anybody from the public wish to speak on that? Please just state your name and address for the record.
John Casagrande, Vice President for Coastal Waste and Recycling, 2480 Second Avenue, Boca Raton, Florida. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I listened to the discussion going back and forth. It's a very tough decision. And for me to sit back and say, okay, when do I make a point to speak either on the rankings or on the items? You have narrowed it down to options 3 and 4. Your carded yard waste service. Now the discussion obviously is with subscription or universal service. I hear that it's an 11-year commitment. I hear about how important the pricing is. There's nothing in the RFP that stated that it would only be the top 2 firms that were ranked. As a matter of fact, Coastal, there was a tie for second with Coastal and Waste Management, and during the second evaluation, the tie was broken through discussion. Hamachu and the evaluation committee broke the tie. There was really no formal breaking of the tie, but if you look at the points, it's a dead heat between Waste Management and Coastal for second. So why, again, I was asked to speak on the rankings, and I didn't choose to speak because it was, second or third. But I feel that if you have all this time, you have until October of 25. You have a lot of time to make that decision. And you look at the pricing today, and if now you have these 2 chosen options, 3 and 4, and not to get into the entire ranking and evaluation again, but why not get best and finals from all 5 companies? It can't hurt. I heard that said, a couple of times. Waste Management on option 3 is $8 million a year higher than FCC. They are $7 million a year higher than Coastal, but yet they get the opportunity to bring their price down. So I ask this commission to think about giving best and finals to everybody. It doesn't hurt. Republic on option 3 is their price is $23 million. I'm not just speaking for Coastal, but I'm speaking and listening to a decision that has to be made, and you've given yourself enough time to make that decision. I think that by giving best and finals to all 5 companies, I can say the top 3 and include Coastal, but that would give you the benefit of the doubt and let staff come in and say, okay, you know what, let's see what that does, because I think what'll happen is it'll keep FCC and Waste Management their pencil even sharper if they know there's 3 people also participating in all 5 of us. We've seen each other's numbers. We see what's going to happen. And I truly ask that you consider the best and finals from all 5 companies. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hey, good evening now, everyone. Mr. County Administrator, County Attorney, thank you for being here. So just a couple things. James Harpering, Town Manager in Indian River Shores. I want to note that the town, while our current relationship with our current vendor is subscription, as it were, the town has an ordinance which requires universal. Essentially, we require everyone to have a subscription, so to speak. And while you may look at the town relative to its demographic in a certain way, we do have a couple of very large multifamily condominium type communities in our town. And a lot of the folks in those communities are on fixed incomes. And if you're familiar with the town and you come in, you'll know those folks and you know where I'm talking about. But the important piece, and to amplify what Commissioner Lohr said about the nature of the community and the aesthetic, as it were, I think is really very well served by Universal. I think as to the narrow issue of the motion before you right now, I think it's a mistake to arm the negotiating committee with only one option, essentially, and telling people here everything they probably already know. If I'm at the table and I'm negotiating, I want some leverage. Having only one option for which we're discussing doesn't really provide us with any leverage. But I will note, as a county resident, that I think, again, Commissioner Lohr's comments were very well taken about the long term and what does the county look like and where do we go with this type of issue or this type of option. I appreciate the demographic. I mean, my mom lived here for many, many years and, thankfully lived to a ripe old age. But she still had garbage. She still took it out. I mean, regardless of the amount. I don't think that should be dispositive of this issue. And respectfully, Commissioner Ehrman, I think the comparison to that 70% piece, which I think is a vital number and a vital percentage in considering going to universal, I actually don't think that's a valid business model comparison, because in the franchise, we're providing a monopoly, essentially. There is no competition, so that 70% number is not one that you could say compare to other business models in a community where there are other competitors within that. With that, as to the narrow issue, I think the council, or the commission rather, would be well-placed to respectfully not support Commissioner Flesher's motion for just a singular option. Again, in the town, we have essentially universal, so we support option 4. I would be making that recommendation to our council, but I ask you to consider the negotiating piece as well relative to a narrow focus right now. So with that, thank you.
Thank you.
We have subscription, mandatory subscription service in that jurisdiction.
Pass an ordinance to make it mandatory subscription.
It's mandatory, so you don't have any contamination problem.
I can't account for contamination. I know it exists. I know it exists at a high percentage. I mean, that I think is documented. For us, what we have a town ordinance that requires people to have solid waste, services, recycling services. However, as it stands right now in our particular franchise agreement, it is a subscription agreement, and I can tell you that it's an administrative issue for the town, for the vendor, and in the end, I think you do better with universal in the pricing, but I throw that in as an aside. But our requirement is that everyone have it per ordinance. However, the relationship right now with the vendor, that one-to-one relationship is subscription. So everyone is required to subscribe.
Thank you.
Different scenario.
Jim, I do agree with you. There's kind of a monopoly. There is no competition once we get the vendor to come in there like that. But still, there's 70% of citizens that chose to subscribe to that.
Yes, sir.
And that's the emphasis that I'm talking about. There's 70% of the people that had a choice to make as to what they wanted to do. 30% chose not to. Again, good as citizens or not, they had that choice too. In my opinion, everybody's happy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, welcome.
Hi, Joanne Stanley, Republic Services. I concur with John in that during the RFP process, it did say best and final offers. So we thought at least all of us would be able to get to the table to give our best and final offer. And I think it just behooves the county to look at the pricing, as you looked at the pricing itself, and who's got the lowest price in 3 and 4, and why wouldn't you ask all 5 haulers to actually give you the best and final offers? Thank you.
Thank you.
It's got to do with the matrix.
Anybody else?
As far as going to universal service, to where everyone has it, there are a lot of people in Indian River County that traveled from down south up to up north for several months of the year. If the county would be collecting monies for the year, then why couldn't someone that is only down here for 6 months call and say, I'm gonna be up in Massachusetts for the next 6 months, and their service is stopped? That's an option you might wanna look at, because you have a solid waste district. Somebody can pick up the phone and take care of that. And I think that would make it a little easier on you, Commissioner Moss, and everybody else that has somebody that constituents that are only here for 6 months out of the year. Just an opinion.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Oh, welcome back. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Question. You mentioned about that not everyone generates enough trash, and that can be arranged. And you mentioned about the garbage bags. If they don't generate enough trash, is it like they're going to pay less?
That is something that wasn't part of the RFP, so it's not an item that's in front of us today.
Okay, because it did sound like the system in Germany, which is perfect system. I wish we could adopt the same one, but I don't think we're ready for it. And then it would be following that. What if I don't generate any trash? Then I'm not going to build completely. About the, I would like to ask all commissioners, please support number 3. Several reasons for that is because, yes, we would like to keep the same what we have. We're happy. I don't think anyone actually called you and asked you, hey, let's change the system. Is there, something what we can do better? Because what we have, it's really good and works for everyone. I believe that all vendors already had an option to do their best. It is their best. They calculated the numbers, how much they will pay for the trucks, for the services, for the people, for the staff, and etc. I don't think it is right to break their legs completely. People have to eat and pay their bills. I'm sorry, but you already did your best, guys, and I appreciate that. I do only one bid for all my clients. I don't do a second one, so that something is fair. And I really, really beg you to support option 3 and Commissioner Flesher. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anybody else? All right, seeing none. Again, to summarize the motion at hand, the motion is to move forward with negotiating solely on option 3. Motion by Commissioner Flesher, seconded by Commissioner Ehrman. All in favor? Opposed? Aye. The motion fails 2-3. Is there a substitute motion?
Motion option 4.
There's a motion for option 4. Is there a second? The motion fails for lack of a second. Is there another motion?
Yes, I move to consider pricing for both options 3 and 4.
I will second that. Any discussion?
Consider all 5 or top 2?
We're not at that point, we're not at that decision-making point yet.
Okay.
All right. Is there any discussion on that motion? Anybody from the public? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-2 with Commissioners Flesher and Lohr dissenting. Okay, next decision point.
Thank you, Commissioners. So, final decision for the night. Staff recommends that the SWID Board authorize the negotiation team to pursue simultaneous negotiations with the top 2 firms of FCC Environmental Services and Waste Management, Inc. to obtain their best and final offer. We're also asking for authorization to negotiate with subsequently ranked firms should negotiations with one or more of the top-ranked firms fail.
Okay, so what you're asking to do is to negotiate with the top 2.
2.
That is your recommendation. We've heard from everybody on that recommendation. So is there a motion?
Authorize negotiation with subsequent ranked firms should negotiations with one or more of the 2 top-ranked firms fail. Does that mean?
Is that one motion or?
What is a failed negotiation? I want
If-
it
if-
explained.
Good question.
If we get to the negotiation table and one of the firms says, no, I stand by my price, I'm not budging.
It's not failed.
I mean,
They don't make the same offer.
I
Failed
understand.
means I'm out.
Correct.
Thoughts on
Failed
that?
means it's no more game. Take my chess pieces, I'm off the board. That's what failed means. Failed never means, I'm sticking with the same price.
No, I mean, they could stick with the same price. Well, I'll correct myself. What I'm saying is that if we're getting a best and final offer, so certainly if they don't budge and we get a best and final offer from another the second company or whatnot that's better than that price, then ultimately we're going to come back in a month and recommend the lowest price to the commission.
So that leaves the ability to cherry pick. Yeah.
So hold, yes, Mr. DeBrawl.
I don't like what I see.
Himanshu,
so let me do something else.
do you have a slide that shows the points that were awarded for 1 through 5 to see how close they all were?
I tried to get it before we came down, but it was taken off the website.
I'm checking with Jennifer to see about the points.
Anything about
There
that?
was an initial point system when we did the initial ranking.
Right.
Then there was a subsequent ranking of the firms to arrive at the top, the ranking of the top 5 firms.
The final ranking of the top 5, so we can understand what kind of point spread there is.
No, I'm done.
So the initial ranking of firms was done on a points basis. And then the subsequent rankings, what the committee came to at the first meeting was 1 through 5. So there's never been a compilation. I can pull up kind of a graphic in a minute or two on my computer that'll show you the math per committee member and how many points they scored each initially on, but that did change for a couple of folks as we went through the process. But there's, I don't have that available in the way you're asking for it, Bill.
Okay, so
Commissioners,
What
I
is-
do have a slide that shows you the annual prices for all 5 companies for option 3 and 4, and sort of the single-family pricing for, so here's all 5 companies for option 3 and 4. Again, the top 2 ranked firms of FCC and WM by the committee ranking that you've approved are slated there, but you could also see the price differentials of other company. I don't have a side-by-side, but it is in your, I believe, in your printed packet. The next slide is a single-family comparison of option 3 and 4 of how the price ranges on all 5 companies. If that helps at all in terms of your decision.
What are we deciding?
So what we're deciding at this point is basically how many people we're negotiating with on option 3 and 4. Are we negotiating with the top 2? Are we negotiating with the top 3? Are we negotiating with the top 17? I mean, that's kind of what we're deciding. There's not 17, I don't mean that, but that's what we're deciding.
Himanshu, can you go back to the slide, the amounts again?
Earlier, did we not,
Okay, we're
was
talking
there not
about,
a positive vote for, we're dealing with these 2 companies?
You voted to rank the firms.
There was a vote
The firm.
on approving the 1 through 5 ranking, but it wasn't specific to who to negotiate with. It was just to accept those 2 rankings, or the list of rankings, I'm sorry.
okay, just on option 4, correct?
No, okay.
See that?
Let me back up, because there's a lot of moving parts here.
Yes, there are.
The first decision that we made was to approve, go back to that slide, please, was to approve the ranking by the committee of 1 through 5. We accepted that ranking, this ranking. That's all we did. We accepted the committee's ranking. That was 1. The second decision we made was carded versus non-carded, and the decision that we ended up with was yes to carded yard waste. The third decision that we just made was which options to negotiate on. We chose to negotiate on options 3 and 4, which is subscription with carded and universal with carded. Now we're being asked basically who to negotiate with. The rankings of those who have already been locked in by our first motion at the beginning of the meeting. So at this point, we already have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that we've accepted based on the committee's recommendation of those rankings. The question now is, staff is recommending the top 2. The conversation has been more than the top 2, or it's been kind of all over the place. What I'm saying is what I said earlier, anybody can make a motion on anything. So if you guys don't want to negotiate with the top 2, if you want to negotiate with something different, or if you do want to negotiate with the top 2, somebody needs to make a motion to direct that negotiation.
I'll do that.
Okay.
Let's go to the next slide, the one with the amounts on it. Let me start from the beginning before I put this perspective, and y'all can shoot it down or you can, approve it. Either way, I'm not offended by this at all. I agree from the very beginning, and I'm just like Commissioner Lohr with regards to how we came to this point, with regards to, maybe it's just old school, you go with the best, lowest bid because you assume that all these people are qualified to do what they need to do based on the ranking and all that sort of stuff. When I look at this chart in 3 and 4, mostly on 4, I see that the prices are all very close. They're all within, other than Waste Pro C, which I think I don't know if they're still in this or not, but they're the highest. If you take the top 4, FCC, Waste Management, Republic, and Coastal E, I think when you look at all those, they're all within $1.5 million or so, from the lowest to the highest. If we're gonna do this, I think we offer it to all, to those 4 to come in based on the rankings. I'm okay with 2, if, like I said, I'm not offended by that, whatever y'all would decide, but I'll make a motion to say we have staff go back and talk to the 4, the FCC, Waste Management, Republic, and
So your motion is to negotiate, your motion is to negotiate with the top 4.
with the best, right, to go back to the ranking. You can. One of those right there,
The top 4.
yes.
Option 4, which includes.
And I'm just looking at option 4. Option 3, there's a
Including
little bit of
5
difference because it's
applicants.
subscription.
So you're suggesting that we negotiate, I just want to make sure everybody understands, we negotiate option 3 and 4 with FCC, Waste Management, Coastal, and Republic.
Correct, that's my motion,
That is your motion.
yes.
Is there a second to that motion? That motion fails for lack of a second.
Chairman, if
Yes.
I may. The reason why staff was recommending the top 2 firms is, again, it was not just necessarily on price. When we evaluated and asked additional questions and whatnot, one of the things I can tell you that changed my mind is one of the requirements we had was to use CNG fuel or some environmentally friendly fuel. And one of the things that, for me, I think 3 out of the 5 companies had compressed natural gas. One had biodiesel, and one was going to sort of, for us, our community, go away from CNG to go back to using diesel fuel. So there were other differences besides price that, for me, dictated how I ranked the firms and what I was looking for in terms of our community. Also, the capability of providing services to substandard roads and things like that, the capabilities of their call center, the amount of trucks and staffing. There was a lot more involved in our ranking than price alone. And we felt as a committee that the top 2 ranked firms were the best of the best, that provided the best proposals and could meet all of our needs, not just in pricing. And that's why, again, I stand behind staff's recommendation of just negotiating with the top 2 firms. It gives us more leverage that we're not just going with somebody that can sharpen the pencil the best, because we may not get the best vendor for our community. Again, I think the process was great. I'm glad that we got 5 vendors to respond rather than, say, 1 in another municipality in our town. So I'm happy with that, but there are a lot of factors that went into our decisions about ranking the firms. And again, sticking with the best of the best is why staff is recommending. It gives us more leverage in negotiations as well. Again, when we open it up to all 5, we're gonna just go back to bidding on price, and we may lose out on capability.
Okay, no, hold on.
Oh.
We're gonna take a 5-minute break. A, because I need a break, and B, because, I need a break. put it down.
I don't know.
Let me see.
Call the meeting back to order. And I'm going to try to get us to a decision-making point. What we are being asked to do right now is determine who we're negotiating with. Staff's recommendation is the top two. I think staff has said that that recommendation includes other points awarded for things beyond price, although price was the majority of, well, 45% or 45 points. We've heard everybody else's input on that. We've seen the numbers. Sean is here to impart some wisdom upon us, hopefully.
Hopefully some wisdom, maybe, maybe not.
Or
Sean Leaskey, Utilities Director. I just maybe wanted to clarify one thing that we're struggling with a little bit, which is we're talking about negotiating with the firms. We're not necessarily talking, I mean, I know we're talking about, and we say best and final offer, but we're really talking about a negotiated offer. And it's really difficult to negotiate, I think, when you look at it, all 5 firms. I think that would be very difficult for a negotiation team to sit down and sit across the table and try to negotiate terms with 5 different companies and come to that on 2 options too. So we're talking about 2 options with 5 firms. There's a lot of things at play there. And I think that becomes a really hard negotiation. And I think, and Bill might be able to correct me and or Jennifer, if we go back to all 5 firms, we're rebidding. We're not actually negotiating. And I think that opens up a can of worms. So I think we need to be very careful, and that is why staff is recommending we focus on the top 2, and if we have problems and we aren't able to agree and reach a negotiation with one or both, we can have the option to continue down the list. But we'd like to stay focused on the top 2. So we'll leave it at that.
Duly noted.
And can I,
That's a good question.
Yes.
Could you, I think we started to talk about this earlier, but I'm not sure I understood. And that was, how close were the number 2 and number 3, which would have been waste management and coastal waste and recycling? There was something mentioned about they were in a dead heat. Is that correct in terms of the ranking?
In one of the options, I think when we were in the second meeting, there was a tie between waste management and coastal. And they came up both, and it was 2-2. They were both the second ranked. And there was ultimately a tiebreaker, and I think I was the tiebreaker. So I will be honest that I was the one who broke the tie. And I can say that the tie was, for me, was because when I ranked the proposals, overall, I felt waste management had a much better technical proposal than coastal. But when you looked at the prices, and ultimately the price was 45 points of the initial ranking, that, you know, those who had a lesser price ended up kind of going up, even if their proposal wasn't necessarily as technically sound. They ended up being a little bit higher in the initial ranking because of that price and the way that price factors into the overall ranking. So just wanted to clarify that. But there was a tie, if you will, in those rankings in the.
to go further on that, is the committees were asked to score 1 through 3, sections 1 through 3, which were the technical proposals. And the consultant and our purchasing manager provided them the score for the financial. They evaluated the financial component. So the technical ranking is what is the number that you have for, and do we have that separated from? Not in a single document. So I'm just, to Sean's point, if a firm had a high price or low price, they got a better score, but they could have had a very low score for the actual technical component, but then that inflated their score because they had a low price.
And it wouldn't be necessarily a really low technical score, but maybe a medium technical score, but a low price. And so that kind of ranked them higher than perhaps somebody who had a good technical, but a much higher price. And so the the price variability kind of factored in, and Jennifer has had a formula for some of that. Of
25%.
if you come in at a low price, you're kind of run number one. If you come in at a higher price, you're based off of a factor. You come in and your points are based off of that variability. And so that kind of ended up pushing some with a higher price on a certain option to a lower rank.
So in other words, to be clear, they weighted the price. So in other words, I'll give the example, because I have it right, I have the RFP right here. So vendor A, if their price proposal was $3 million, they got 100% of the 45 points. If vendor B was 3.5, it was actually 86, because you basically took the 3 million divided by 3.5 and it got you 86% of those points. So if it was 6 million, they only got 50% because they were twice as high. So it was fair to all firms based on their price.
Understood. Hold on. Commissioner Flesher had a comment, and then back to you, Commissioner Moss.
I just, and thank you for the clarification, Ms. Leskey. Gentlemen spoke about offering all five the opportunity, going back, and, that stuck in my mind, and hearing that right, we'd be going back to negotiations, full negotiations. Well, the only way to do that is to trash this and go back. I realize staff has put in a lot of time, the committee put a lot of time, but this decision factor for the next, after 2 more years, 10 more years, so it's about a dozen years, right? Okay. With the CPI gonna be in there anyway. And having endured this discussion, I don't know, this reminds me of a steeplechase, not of a negotiation and a decision for the greater good of the citizens of Indian River County. I think there might be something to that about the having everybody bid again. Because quite frankly, I don't see an $8 million adjustment in one category or a $2 million adjustment. How valid was the first one to begin with if that can be, if that $8 million can disappear? Or how valid was it that, well, we do it for a few million less? That's an awful lot of truck, that's an awful lot of labor, and that's an awful lot of service to the citizens of Indian River County. Whether we determine whether we're going to go with subscription or we're going to go with universal. So the only way to get to that, let's have all five come in again, since we do have we have a reasonable amount of time on our hands. If we scrap where we're at right now and put it out again, the pencils will be sharp. Everybody knows the numbers, and those really hungry for this position will come in with razor-sharp pencils. That's just my thought. If you really want to look at a true value and have both options available, and if we narrowed it down to those two options, put it out again. Because we've had a lot of pain in getting to where we've had to get to, and we've seen what the citizens have said. Not all the citizens here today have spoken, but because I think they might have stepped back because of all the decisions that had to be made to get to us to a point where we have now 2 pieces of fruit that now we have to decide what type of fruit salad we're going to have. And I don't think that that's fair to our citizens if we have such a long-range plan and some time. I think that if we scrap today and rebid, I think we'll have a better result out from the chute and be able to make a better decision for the citizens of Indian River County.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Moss?
Yes, and thank you for that information. Since 2 and 3 were very close, depending upon how different variables were weighted and requiring, in the end, a tiebreaker, I would move that we consider the top 3 in the negotiating process, and that would be FCC, Waste Management, and Coastal Waste and Recycling.
All right, there's a motion by Commissioner Moss to negotiate with the top 3 firms, FCC, Waste Management, and Coastal. Is there a second to Commissioner Moss's motion? All right, that dies for lack of a second. Is there a substitute motion?
Yeah, I want to try that idea I just had. Okay? How about we pause right now, scrap this whole process. Oh, sorry, Camacho. I know you put a lot of work into it. And rebid this, and we'll get better results.
Commissioner Fleischer and Madam Chairman, the problem with that is that we have to have some legal reason, a very good reason, to reject all proposals and ask for new ones. There has been nothing that has been submitted on the record in the last 3 meetings that we have had to bring us to that point. So I would strongly recommend that we do not reject all bids, all proposals,
Okay.
and that we proceed with,
Okay.
the matter.
Duly heard. Commissioner Moss, what was your motion again?
The motion was to go with the top 3, which was.
I'll second it for discussion and to try to move this in some direction. All right. Well, nobody wants to make a motion, so she's making one, so I'm seconding it.
Yeah, and just to restate it, since we have a question, the top 3 were FCC, Waste Management, and Coastal Waste and Recycling of Florida.
Okay.
Chairman?
Yes.
In all fairness, to clarify in terms of the motion, because the board is looking at getting negotiated prices for both option 3 and 4, I would like to just clarify that if we go back to our ranking form, we actually didn't have a 1, 2, 3 clear. FCC was 1, Waste Management was 2. That's definitely evident. When you look at option 3 and 4, we had Coastal as ranked 3rd for option 3. We had Republic ranked 3rd for option 4. So in all fairness and transparency, based on the ranking that was approved, if you're authorizing staff to negotiate both options 3 and 4.
All right. Well, then, this is just getting too complicated. I will rescind my second. Is there another second? Seeing none. Is there another motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
based on the information from staff and the fact that 4 vendors have scored between 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and in all fairness, let's sharpen the pencils with all of them. The 4. Including Republic, who,
That motion's already been made, and there was a lack of a second for it, as far as the top 4.
no.
Top 3
No, top 3 was made.
And top 4.
and top 4.
Top 4.
Commissioner Ehrman did top 4.
Staff would reiterate that it recommends the top 2 because they rose to the, when you take the technical ranking with the financial, that's why they're in 1 and 2.
And again,
I forgot
the
about that. I apologize.
staff recommendation was also to allow us to negotiate with 3, 4, and 5 if we should fail in bringing back a solid price and a solid contract to the board. So it leaves the door open to negotiating with the other firms. We don't have to come back to you at another time to ask you that we failed somehow for one reason or another with the top one or two. And that's why we've recommended that allow us to negotiate with the top two, but leave the door open for the negotiation team to have sort of that edge, that we could go to the subsequent vendors if the negotiation team needs to do that. That we're asking for your approval today to allow us to do that. That leaves the door open to all five, but we're gonna start with the top two first. They rose to the top, and that's why we're recommending starting with them.
Madam Chair. So we do know that we've collectively voted on the rankings, was the first thing we did. Then we voted on the yard waste. I think that was a 4-1. So we've gone with basically staff's recommendation so far. So I will motion to negotiate with the top two, which the staff has recommended, with the potential of the other three being involved if something comes up with the other two.
I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Lohr to negotiate with the top two, which would be FCC and Waste Management, with a second by Commissioner Moss. Is there any discussion on that motion? Is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak on that motion?
John Casagrande, Coastal Waste and Recycling. I believe Ms. Hamash was incorrect. On option 3, coastal is number 2. And if you put they have the rankings for the option 3, and coastal is ranked number 2 in that option. So I asked, they had it up there during the break. I asked that chart go up there again to show that coastal is ranked number 2 on option 3.
That,
Waste Management's ranked number, you have it in your packet.
the screen we were looking at was our initial ranking. That was the initial ranking, not the final ranking. That was what was on the.
The rankings for option 3 are FCC 1, Waste Management 2, Waste Pro 5, Republic 4, Coastal 3. For option 4, FCC 1, Waste Management 2, Waste Pro 5, Republic 3, Coastal 4.
I don't want to put words in Commissioner Lohr's mouth, but I believe so correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe what his motion was implied was that he was adopting those based on the initial rankings that we approved at the beginning of the meeting. Correct. Not based on subsequent individual rankings. It was based on the overall rankings that we approved with our
Madam Chair,
first motion.
I believe Mr. Casagrande was we were looking at some of our spreadsheets that we developed throughout the process on the screen earlier. And one of the sheets we were looking at was compiling the initial scores for numbers. And it was actually after the initial ranking and not the final ranking that the committee developed. So
Okay.
that was the.
And it's all public record.
With
Yes.
the carded yard waste.
Correct. Okay. All right. There's a motion by Commissioner Lohr with a second by, yes, I'm sorry, go ahead. I apologize.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, fellow members. Charles Merkley, FCC, Director of Municipal Sales and Contracts. I've been sitting patiently for a while here, and I think you listen to your staff. They are the experts. They're the ones that went out on the street and saw what everybody's doing. So I strongly support your staff's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, let's call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Any more decisions to be made?
Commission, no. Thank you very
Okay.
much. Negotiation team will do our job. We'll hope to come back to you next month.
Fantastic, meeting adjourned.